All right. Well, here goes nothing. I'm just going to blow some smoke here while we go live on Instagram. Now, this last Sunday, there were chemtrails like none other. Up here near Sholo, small town, up in the woods, in the mountains. Is it just some coincidence now that out of nowhere, we were in the 80s, man, 80s consistently, and then no joke, it was like a hurricane yesterday. The wind was incredible. For the first time ever, I had to anchor the table down with a bunch of logs that my Starlink's on, and I had to wire the Starlink to the table to ensure it didn't take flight. It was no joke. Awning had to come up. I was concerned about some trees around, and then sure enough, things dropped below freezing. Hailstorms started ensuing, and then there have been multiple hailstorms today, and then even snow. So how do you go from the 80s to freezing weather seemingly overnight? I know we're about to transition. It's kind of that time of year. But I'm just saying, is there just kind of a coincidence that the sky was blanketed by geoengineering enthusiasts? I'll let you determine that for yourself. A lot of awful, crazy things going on. One of the other crazy things, oh my gosh, it is completely unbelievable. Just think about it for a second. Everyone everyone, and hated Kamala Harris. She had like negative votes last she ran. Unbelievable. And now seemingly all these people love her and is worshiping her as though she's their God. Now, obviously, media and their war machine is blowing more hype and infringing, blowing the actual truth out of proportion, undoubtedly. But just the sheer shift in insanity from people, even of the Democratic Party, hating that individual, to supporting and fighting, willing to die for this individual, seemingly overnight. Doesn't that just go to show how corrupt the system has become? Once again, that's the party of democracy, right? Define democracy, majority rules. Well, what majority was behind her other than the elites? We, the people, had zero say. So that was a selection. But it also goes to show that they could have selected a freaking dodo bird. Like, I'm not joking. And those birds are extinct. But yet they could have selected a dodo bird. And dare I even say that an extinct animal might have conjured up more support than Kamala herself. That's the type of infiltration. That's the type of war machine we are up against. And much, much more, in fact. So let's kick things off. Welcome to a Muzzled Chat. I hope you're having a friggin' fantastic day. Now, given the unexpected weather, the stellar investments in upgrades to solar and battery, it hasn't been enough. It hasn't been enough, given enough power to even be here today. So I've run myself rugged to find solutions. I'm essentially, I may have got a generator that I'm going to have to return. Because frankly, I just do not have the funds to continue to make investments like that. I just don't have them. So if you'd like to see me continue this fight and be more honed in on what really matters, then invest in a Muzzled Chat. I am going to war on your behalf each and every single day. And we can magnify the impacts we're having together. So I am calling upon the listeners to help keep us in the category of the unpurchasable. It's either, I'm staying unpurchasable or I'm tanking doing this. That's just where I'm at. Because I can't see involvement of my time and my energy into anything else. No matter how, let's say, ungifted I'm even showing up in doing this. It's warfare, folks. And with it being information warfare, biological warfare, infiltration without shots, how else do I go about combating that? One individual bearing arms at this point, what is that going to yield? If there is a better path than what I'm currently on, then please drop it in the comments. If you personally feel that I would be better off in, something realistic, let me know. I just want to plug in and actually see results. Plug into a way to help gain results and outcomes. So, to whatever ability I can. So I do have a direct Venmo, Cash App, a GoFundMe. Heck, there is even the Buy Me a Coffee link. Click any one of those. Throw in $5. Every little bit helps. Heck, if I get enough, then maybe this won't end up a return on this very, very cheap generator. Is the cheapest one I could find that I felt comfortable enough that, gosh darn it, it doesn't sound very ethical, but I had to keep the lights on for y'all. So whatever it takes, they can deal with the return, right? Let's just say it's a BlackRock corporation and I bought a China generator. So it's like, frick the system. I know. It's not the most ethical thing to do. But nonetheless, do need to stay in the category of the unpurchasable and need your support in order to continue. And you can magnify the efforts, because I swear to you, I'm going to put everything that comes in into keeping things going and whatever that takes, and magnify. I mean, just think, for the folks out there that have some deep pockets, $1 million. Yeah, that sounds outrageous to a lot of us, but to some people, it's like, no, I make $1 million donations to my political parties each year, to my churches each year, and then a few other things each year. Just think for a second what you could do by funding an individual so on fire to showing up on the front lines each day, what we could do on the marketing side of things, what we could do on the technological side of things, ramping things up, kicking off web pages, even Patreons, all sorts of, heck, it would be awesome to even have the funds, because now we could kick off groups to start tackling and build out web pages for the public to go to, kind of a hub where it will have all the emails pre-crafted and letters pre-crafted that you could print out. You could just sign petitions, right? And then by state, the senators and governor and all the elected officials, emails, phone numbers, and we could get organized in that regard. There's a lot of other things we could do. It actually would be awesome to kick off a whole other leg fighting the child sex trafficking. And I've already gotten some ideas, and I'm in cahoots with some of the military men I'm in touch with to look into supporting Underground Railroad / our own thing. It would be so amazing to have the funds to start kicking off actual, like bringing in younger filmmakers, like, I should have even queued it up. But there's this other one that did amazing by families and the COVID tyranny, things of that nature. And they did so well in the creation of a film, more so a documentary. And we could utilize individuals like that. And obviously it'd be great to fund them a little, right? Because they're doing a fantastic job. But get out combinations, whether it's content we've created or just really help putting facts together in a colorful way, in an entertaining way to get more people. That's what I love what Stu Peters is doing with the What's in the Water documentary. Died suddenly. These little ones. He's got another one, and then another one's coming out, Occupied, which I look forward to that. I guess it's going to be a mic drop, really expose the infrastructure of evil in the world today. It's truly endless, but it's whatever you want to help direct as a donor, or I listen to anyone just as far as input. But above all, I truly want to follow, and I feel like we have the energy, we just more so need the funds to explore more of these avenues that would lead to more solutions. So you could only brainstorm it. But anyway, above all, wherever God leads, that is crucial. All right, this is no joke. Arizonians, what is going on, and why are we sitting back and accepting this? Unbelievable. They are openly allowing illegal immigrants to vote in federal elections now in this state of Arizona. Now you know why the Secretary of State, Katie Hobbs, that was a rigged election in 2022. It all happened. Yes, even more than the visibly popular Carrie Lake couldn't win it. That's how rigged. Unbelievable. So Katie Hobbs installed herself instead to keep the corruption going. And when you look right here, just read this. A person is not required to submit proof of citizenship with the voter registration form. Will only be eligible to vote in federal elections. Well, there's also loopholes in the majority of the states to vote in the local as well. This is not good. Think on the fact, dating back, the biggest gap of a presidential election throughout America's history was 17 million. Only. And that seems like a lot, but it seems pretty small when I feel confident, and some people even say in excess of 40 million, but we'll just keep it at in excess of 30 million invaders, criminals in this country. They broke that law, crossing into our country. What is going to keep them from voting illegally? More documentation. Biden made good on his promise to use government agencies to allow non-citizen to vote for the federal races. And in these documentations, like right here, actually shows how these illegal criminals through access can actually obtain the ability to vote. Doesn't mean it's still a criminal act, but do they care? No, there's certain individuals that are encouraging them. Federal law, in fact, prohibits non-citizens from voting in the federal elections. Arizona law prohibits non-citizens from voting for all state and local offices and requires proof of citizenship. But that is all out the window with Katie Hobbs. That is all out the window with the Biden-Kamala regime. Remember, Biden did not win the 2020 election. Our country is in the hands of criminals. Undoubtedly. I mean, just read this. 10 reasons people claim there is no election fraud. Could this potentially be you or someone you know? Just a bunch of freaking bimbo excuses, I tell you. One reads, they were told there was no fraud, so they stick with that story. Yeah, that makes sense. Just brainwashed. Sure, run with the talking points. 2, they didn't look for it, so they obviously didn't find it. You know what? I've seen actually a lot of that throughout these years myself, where not only did they run with the talking heads talking points and just regurgitating, but they obviously didn't look into 2,000 Mules and all the other overwhelming evidence and calculations and algorithms. Like it couldn't even happen other than being fraud. It's just, there's 20 different angles that proved it was a selection, not an election. Why an individual, when it comes down to the importance, the great equalizer, a one person, one vote, wouldn't even look into that? Like, that just behooves me. That doesn't even make sense. 3, they need others to tell them how to think. Yeah, it seems like there's quite a few of those, more than I would like to admit, but it's just the truth of the matter. 4, they are naive and gullible, or simply do not care. Yes, there's a lot of that too. Unfortunately, they just, what difference am I going to make? And go on about seemingly what's important to them, not realizing everything that is important to them in this crucial moment of history is being threatened. They think their government looks out for their best interests. Oh boy, that just may be someone too far gone. I don't know. I like to be optimistic, but my goodness, that just takes a level of ignorance and just, I don't know. 6, they like the results of the fraud. So why would they look? Oh, that's even worse. Don't even get me started. 7, they want to live in a banana republic, so they ignore the fraud. Wow. You don't value your independence, your sovereignty, the constitutional republic, your freedom, your Bill of Rights, your constitutional rights. That's treasonous. 8, they think they can vote themselves out of this mess despite fraud. That's a level of delusion I cannot comprehend. 9, they are benefiting from the fraud, so they must deny it exists. Yeah, there's a special place for you. 10, they are afraid to accept the fact that we have been lied to. The disconnect. Ugh, it's so sad. Ignorance is not bliss, my friends. Well, in what world is this acceptable? The cheating has already begun. The authorities need to crack down and put these criminals in jail. I demand it. So do we need to start reaching out to our sheriff departments and the authority figures? Do your job. We are losing our country. Only U.S. citizens should be allowed to vote. This is insane. I agree 100%. Whoa. Let's go ahead and I'm going to make sure my audio is good on this clip. I think we should be good. Let's go ahead and play this. This is no joke. This is right now, folks. Kill the music.
Just out of curiosity, are you registered to vote?
Yes, we've already registered.
Are you a citizen?
No.
Are you a citizen? No, I'm waiting for my residency right now.
So he voices over their answers so we can understand it, but he replays it in Spanish and such too. But this is verbatim what these individuals are stating. Unbelievable.
And do you plan to vote this year? Yes. Who do you prefer right now? Kamala or Trump? Or Trump? No, Kamala. Have you been registered?
Surprised.
Are you a citizen or not? And would you vote for Kamala? Well, yeah.
Arizona has recently become the center of election integrity concerns. It was the most closely contested state during the 2020 presidential election, decided by a margin of less than 11,000 votes. The razor-thin margin of victory in 2020 led to intense scrutiny of election integrity measures in the state. The primary concern is that non-citizens could be registering to vote and participating in American elections. However, the mainstream media continues to minimize the issue. The Washington Post said that the issue of non-citizens voting was dishonest. Rolling Stone claimed that the issue was non-existent, and NPR assured its audience that the issue is a myth.
The war machine.
The stakes in the 2024 presidential election could not be higher. So, we went to Arizona to investigate the matter ourselves. At the Los Vecinos apartment complex in Phoenix, Arizona, we asked residents if they were registered to vote and if they were citizens. The responses we obtained destroy the narrative that non-citizens participating in United States elections is a conspiracy theory.
Hola, señora, ¿cómo está? Somos una organización, ahorita estamos ayudando a la comunidad hispana aquí del área de Phoenix, dándoles información para la gente que igual quieren registrarse para votar aquí en las elecciones en noviembre. Nomás por curiosidad, ¿está usted registrada para votar?
Ya nos registramos.
Ok. Sí. ¿La registraron aquí o en el trabajo?
¿Vino?
En el trabajo. Okay. ¿Usted es ciudadana?
No.
¿Usted ya lo registraron? Había una aplicación que me dijo que, bueno, fue en la ayuda en la ayuda que nos dan a nosotros los hispanos cuando venimos aquí. Yo puse que sí, que llegué a votar, pero bueno, no sé si quiere registrarme.
O sea, usted puso que sí.
Sí, yo puse que sí, me dije, ahí me salió una aplicación que si quería votar y yo puse que sí.
¿Y usted es ciudadano?
No, estoy esperando la residencia todavía.
Now hang in there, folks. This is diving in a bit into the bread and circus, because we are under the illusion of choice right now in this country. The evidence is overwhelming. So it's easy to just, it's too big to rig and let's show up. And yes, it's important. It's important that we show up. Otherwise, how are we going to, no matter what is the outcome, how are we going to have the information or some just basic information to go through, right, to see all that happened. However, there is something bigger that needs to take place, and it's just sheer unity of we the people. The sleeping giant must be entirely awakened to address these issues, but yet also the bigger elephant looming in the room, okay? And that's some corrupt individuals, and we're going to get into that because as important as the election seems, there truly are bigger fish to fry.
Está sacando el resultado, ok. ¿Y usted planea votar este año? Y usted, la última pregunta es, ¿a quién le gusta a usted ahorita? A Kamala y el Trump.
Y el Trump. No, la Kamala.
La Kamala. ¿Usted dónde nació?
En Cuba.
¿En Cuba?
Sí.
Ok.
Cuba.
¿Está usted registrado para votar?
Creo que ya me registré la semana pasada.
¿Ya se registró?
Already did this.
En el súper que está aquí.
En el súper, lo registraron.
Personas así como ustedes, que estaban usando.
¿Usted es ciudadano?
No, residente.
¿Residente? Sí. Ok. ¿Le curiosidad, usted está registrado para votar?
Sí.
¿Sí? Ok. ¿Lo registraron aquí o en su trabajo?
They're all voting, folks.
¿Usted es ciudadano?
No.
¿No? ¿No es ciudadano? Ok. Nomás de pura curiosidad, ¿usted está registrada para votar?
Sí, ya llenaron eso.
¿Ya?
Sí.
Already done it.
¿Vinieron aquí alguien para registrarla?
Ajá.
Pero sí, de curiosidad, ¿usted es ciudadano americano?
No.
¿No?
No, not a citizen. Already voted.
A registrar para poder votar en las elecciones.
Oh, ya pasaron.
¿Ya? ¿Usted ya está registrado?
Ya.
Oiga, ¿usted es ciudadano o no es?
No, no hay ningún ciudadano.
Oh, ok. Oiga, pero este año la Kamala y el trompudo, ¿usted quién le gusta?
El Trompas dice que el primer día va a empezar a sacar gente.
Usted tuviera que votar por algo, ¿por quién vota?
Mira, el Trompas es negociante, ¿ok? La Kamala Harris no es negociante, pero la Kamala Harris creo que está con la comunidad, pero pues va a seguir igual, la gasolina va a llegar más cara, todo el dinero lo están mandando para las guerras.
¿Usted votara por Kamala?
Pues sí.
Pero lo que dice lo bueno de Kamala es que está con la gente.
Está con la comunidad, hace promesas por no cumplir.
Even knowing what he knows, still Kamala. Unbelievable, folks. Okay. Let's not freak out. Let's do what we can. That's all we can do. We can hand it over to God. But the thing is, don't live what if. This country goes to snot and you didn't show up. You didn't hound the state officials. You didn't broadcast similar to this. It doesn't have to be Unmuzzled Chat. Just true patriots out there with morals and ethics and great intentions. There's so much opportunity for us right here in this moment. We can't allow the luxuries of our lives to distract us from doing what we can. Now, to expose, Stu Peters is amazing. And this rant right here, he really kind of nails it down. So try to keep up. I don't even know if I should speed this up at all. Maybe we'll go 125. I mean, we could keep it normal. But there is a greater threat that's essentially infiltrated, that's pulling the strings, and it's all biblical, my friends. This is a spiritual warfare playing out in the flesh right here in this time we live in this era, if you will. Let's hear what he's got to say. It's actually kind of fun because I don't get to watch much of his content. I just mostly utilize podcast apps and just listen to the audio. But yeah, this is kind of a treat for me to just watch it as well.
You know, we talk a lot on this program about the undeniable, indisputable fact that the United States of America is indeed an occupied and largely conquered nation.
Yes.
And that it's completely at the mercy of this global Talmudic central banking cabal, its genocidal nation state of Israel. And all of their allies, all of their henchmen that are running these NGOs have been embedded into financial institutions and corporations all over the world, political operations like AIPAC, big pharma killers like Pfizer, financial institutions like the World Rothschild Bank, NGOs like the World Economic Forum, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, alongside the United Nations. And all of them have infiltrated and seized complete and total control of just about everything, all of the levers of power, all of the positions of influence. They're embedded in the president's cabinet. They're elected to Congress in rigged, sham, fake elections. They have sold America off to usurious Jewish bankers, and now they're using this country as ground zero for their worldwide assault on humanity. They are using our country to go forward with the Great Reset, the New World Order, the Fourth Industrial Revolution. They have bragged so much about all of this, as well as the civilizational collapse that must precede these things to make them possible.
We've brought these
Be it
receipts.
through biowarfare or global conflict or weaponized weather or all of the above and a whole lot more. And they're not trying to hide any of this.
True.
It would be one thing if they were doing all of this behind the scenes, under the cover of darkness, but they're not. All of this is happening right out in front of us. As a matter of fact, they love rubbing it in our faces. They love telegraphing their punches because they get off on that. They get off on putting you and the entire world through humiliation ritual after humiliation ritual, and part of that is telling everybody exactly what's coming and then standing back and laughing as nobody does a damn thing to stop it. Why else would they be telling you that in 10 years, you'll eat bugs, you'll own nothing, and you'll be happy? Because those are their plans.
Yeah.
They will destroy everything. They will kill billions, and they will enslave the world under a satanic, homosexual form of authoritarian communism. All of this is in the works right now.
We're truly headed in that direction. unless we decide to seize the opportunities we have. Truly, it is in God's hands. It is our choice. But I just know, like, I can't be the only one feeling convicted when you actually set down the more selfish things in this life and start actually looking into, well, shoot, I'm dealing with a bioweapon. What's up? What's going on with that? Whoa, acknowledging the COVID bioweapons. What's up with that? And you're looking at all this warfare playing out. How are we delusionally not acknowledging as a mass civilization of this country with an occupied, conquered government that is turning and being weaponized against we the people? So the Talmudic order, it's like this new world order. I mean, they have projected it all for us. And they're utilizing all the puppets right here at home. It is clear as day. And it takes no rocket scientist to connect these dots and understand the sense of urgency at all. So, yeah, I just couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine being so disconnected and just honing in a small personal bubble sense and not paying mind and stepping up to the role, the responsibility, and duty we all have as children of God, as citizens of this country, to do everything within our power. And if it falls short, that's okay. Because ultimately we are coming and fighting from a place of victory. Did God win or not win the war in heaven? Did he not cast the evil one, Satan, down to this earth, now dwelling with us, now ultimately sitting on his throne very effectively? Yes, he's amassed a throne on this very world as we speak. And he has a great many minions. Are we to fear them? No. Because even here in the flesh, through his son Jesus Christ, he gave us the evidence, the proof we needed that he didn't just conquer evil in heaven. He conquered death itself. That is the ultimate. So, in a sense, to shield yourself and not pay attention to spiritual warfare, in a way, are you worshiping the world? Because the devil owns that fence. That's dangerously close in ways to worshiping the devil himself. In ways. Because you could still be going to church on Sunday. You could still be born again in a huge way through Jesus Christ. And I know it's not through works. However, if we're to follow in Jesus' footsteps, we're to be unmuzzled. We're to try to save as many as we can. So how can we do that if we are just encompassed in our little bubble? Let's continue.
That's not conspiratorial in nature, and that's not me being hyperbolic. According to the World Economic Forum's own website, they're running these things called Centers for the Fourth Industrial Revolution all over the world, especially here in America, where they've already set up their headquarters in conjunction with our occupied federal government, the United Nations, the Talmudic central banking cabal that they all answer to, and they're even doing this on federal land. According to the World Economic Forum's website, quote, our office in San Francisco is the headquarters of the forum's Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, housed in the Presidio National Park. The center is a hub for global multi-stakeholder corporations to develop policy framework and advance collaboration that accelerates the benefit of science and technology, end quote.
Occupied.
The World Economic Forum goes on to explain that that facility is staffed by over 80 full-time employees who are working on developing everything from central bank digital currencies to 15-minute cities to new forms of precision medicine that merge government, tyranny, eugenics, biological warfare, and Silicon Valley technology into one full frontal assault against humanity under the guise of healthcare.
Right.
So when they call this place the Center for the Fourth Revolution, they're not exaggerating. This is where the pieces of the puzzle are developed, and then they're all put together. And again, this San Francisco office is not alone. There are 5 satellite centers all over the world with different specialties. And this includes another major World Economic Forum outpost in New York City, the longtime home of the central banking cabal and, of course, home to the United Nations. And according to the World Economic Forum, that's exactly why they're operating there. The World Economic Forum says on its own website that its New York Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, quote, serves as a critical connection point to partner company headquarters and also enables collaboration with United States-based international organizations like the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, and the United Nations, end quote. So as the old saying goes, this is a big club and we ain't in it.
Right.
And while Americans are worried about the NFL or Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce or the next rigged election, our own demise is being publicly planned for us in our own backyard. Lisa Logan has been following the World Economic Forum and the United Nations and all of these other groups for a very...
So it's interesting because it is all out there in the open. You don't have to take our words for it. Yet, you won't ever understand this level of warfare or the sense of urgency unless you do your due diligence. And the most important thing you could do in starting that would be sourcing your information and not... So sourcing from a free source. Rumble's great. Telegram's great. X is great-ish. It's liberated to an extent. I am constantly surprised as to what is being allowed to be, like slide through, right? So it's decent. But Rumble is truthfully right now the one-stop shop. Like it's got it all. And what better format other than video and the ability to shut off the screen and continue to play the audio just like a podcast? What better format out there and platform is there? Truly. Unless you really enjoy just clicking through the stuff, then I guess X would be it for you. But you could click through. It's endless content. So this topic to me, I don't understand as to like how certain Christians or any individual would have such a core belief that would just not allow them to absorb information in this existence. I would venture to say that's a defective core belief if that's the case. Because there's been throughout time, evil has targeted the Bible in a lot of ways. And the Scofield Bible is one of those methods. So there's nothing more I personally enjoy diving into at this stage more than solidifying the biblical truths and seeking answers directly from our loving Creator himself. Yeah, right there. Wow. There is truly nothing more important to do with our time than seek the truth from our loving heavenly Creator, God. Only then will we be free. Not with any core belief. We can really hone in and develop profound truths when we're born again, things of that nature. But we got to understand, like, where did that really come from? And when it's coming through certain churches and certain individuals, like it very well potentially could have ended up coming through entirely pure. But let's just take, for example, that some individuals to this day created a core belief, and you could bring all the evidence forward of the millions that have died, the millions that have struggled directly correlating to that shot, but they cannot see past, because now this is like tied to their identity. So we need to humble ourselves, like it says in the Bible, in meekness. Because only then, when we find truth from our loving heavenly Creator, only then will we truly be free. free. And only then will we fall into his purpose for us individually in this life. So this is pretty powerful 15-minute video. I'll go ahead and full screen it, but I hope you enjoy it, because it was very educational even for me, and I thoroughly enjoy. And it's not just this one. I should have even pulled up The Chosen on Rumble, not The Chosen, the awesome film by Angel Studios. You know what? I'll try to find that as this plays, and we'll get that queued up. Not that I'm going to play it, just I'll add it as a reference, because you don't have to base any beliefs on any singular content, right? It's a forever pursuit in this existence. I just don't want evil under the guise of doing good, right? Vaccines or the castration of children, so many things. Let's not allow ourselves to become deceived by the devil in this existence.
1908, when it published a false and intentionally misleading Bible called the Schofield Reference Bible. Its mission was to inject into the Christian text reinterpretations that made the future state of Israel the way to God.
This book was so important that Oxford University Press opened its first branch in the United States to publish it. They had never published an American book before.
Interesting.
They had not published Whittier's books, his poetry. They had not published Longfellow. They had not published any of our great American authors, but they published this.
The Oxford University Press published the Schofield book. They promoted it into key American seminaries and Bible schools where the beliefs of future generations of pastors could be molded to cloud the peacemaking traditions of Christianity and benefit the state of Israel. Most pastors and teachers were unaware of any danger, since there was no state of Israel at the time. Most of them did not even know the Jewish state was being planned. Few guessed that the Schofield book would be used by secular powers to bend Christians into political and financial servitude to the Jewish state, present-day Israel. American Christianity became increasingly Zionized after 1948, when the State of Israel appeared as a result of a United Nations edict. Oxford University Press was strongly Zionist-influenced, and it provided a huge financial and promotional boost when it opened a publishing branch in New York City. This for the purpose of publishing the Christian Zionist Manual in 1908, called the Schofield Reference Bible. This book was to be a foundational document upon which Christian Zionism, by a host of other names including evangelicalism, would begin its methodical growth by deception. The founders of World Zionism, especially Chaim Weizmann, successor to Theodor Herzl, had much to do with drawing the United States into World War I. A mere handful of dominant American Zionists were able to influence President Wilson, possibly by blackmail, to join the war in Europe over his advisors' objections. America lost over 100,000 men who were entirely innocent of any involvement in European politics. And out of all this, the World Zionist movement gained a piece of land called Palestine. The land of the Philistine was England's payoff to World Zionism for causing America to enter World War I on the side of Great Britain, which was losing the war to Germany. By 1917, the World Zionist movement was in high gear toward occupying Arab Palestine after the Balfour Declaration gave them a claim, without title, to any land occupied by the Palestinians. The Schofield Reference Bible was copyrighted in 1909. It is an Old and New Testament with most of the notes in the original text added in the Old Testament. Later, many notes were added to the New Testament as the Schofield Reference Bible was re-edited several times, with the most radical change being made in 1967.
The book has been updated over and over again, each time by Oxford University Press, always having Mr. Schofield's name on the front of it. In fact, he's listed as the editor in the most recent edition, even though he's been dead for about 40 years.
The cover shows the editor, Cyrus I. Schofield, with 7 other men on the editorial board. One of these was Reverend James M. Gray, president of the Moody Bible Institute, one of the most influential organizations in evangelical circles of the day. There were also 2 other seminary leaders on the editorial board. Those lending their names were predominantly heads of seminaries and Christian colleges.
What happened is the distribution took place through these seminaries. And then when young pastors were graduated from these schools and they went back out and took a church and started to teach from the pulpit, they had one of these in their hands. This is what was given to them. And I suppose that they were probably given to the seminaries. It was likely that the Oxford Press was very generous in making sure that all these people had these.
What exactly is the Schofield Reference Bible? Let us look critically at just one page of the book that has become the guide for secularist Jews in Israel and evangelical Christians in America to explain why they think present-day Israel has the right to all of the land in the Middle East, beginning with Palestine. Genesis 12:3 is part of the Torah and is quoted in the Quran. These 3 verses are standard in the King James translation and very similar in other Bibles. Let me paraphrase it as you read the Old English. The Lord told Abram to leave his home and family and go into a land that God would show him. God promised to then make of Abram a great nation, bless him, and make his name great, protect him by blessing his friends and cursing his enemies. And from Abram's seed all the nations of the earth would be blessed. Now for the part that is important to traditional Christians. I quote, "In these shall all the families of the earth be blessed." Christianity has for 2,000 years taken this to be the first notice from God of the coming Savior of mankind. Genesis 12:3 is the earliest covenant that God made to Abram, and it is the one used by Israelis and Christian Zionists to justify the idea that the entire Middle East should be Israeli property. I quote, "Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, into a land that I will show thee." Zionists of all races interpret the phrase, "into a land that I will show thee," as a perpetual land grant to present-day Israel. Now we will examine the most effective corrupter of Scripture in history, one Cyrus I. Scofield, a 19th century American. Note on page 19 that the footnotes dwarf the text. Note also that the italicized insertions in between the verses that are not part of the Bible. In the 1967 version of the Scofield Reference Bible, there are more footnotes than in the original 1909 version, and since the death of Scofield in 1921, the footnotes have grown to dwarf the text in these very important pages. Let's look again at the vital footnote 2 found in the Scofield Reference Bible in 1967 on page 19. The footnote reads, "God made an unconditional promise of blessing through Abram's seed to the nation of Israel to inherit a specific territory forever." But the passage doesn't say anything like this. God orders Abram to go to a land that God will show him, using the first person familiar thee, meaning Abram and no one but Abram. The passage does not say that God is giving any piece of land to anybody forever. It doesn't say anything about Israel.
Now, how complicated is it? Leave your land, go where I tell you to go, and I will protect you. How complicated is that? How many footnotes does it take to understand what God was saying to Abraham? I mean, anybody who reads that should be able to figure that out. That's what the message is. But Mr. Scofield wrote all of this to explain it.
In fact, if we accept biblical history, we know that Abram had no children when this happened, and not for quite a while. So there was no person or nation named Israel when this promise was made. There was no state or nation named Israel. The man Israel did not even exist in Abram's imagination when God spoke to him. How then could Scofield or the Oxford University Press say that God was promising the land to the present-day state of Israel forever?
Where did the state of Israel get in this? When Abraham was spoken to by God, Israel, the man known as Israel, hadn't been born yet. He was 2 generations in the future. And he was not a state. He was a person that eventually had a tribe. And then after him, 3,000 years later, along comes a bunch of Europeans who name state after him. But this says that God gave that land to the nation of Israel forever. Imagine 70 million people who are taught this every day.
The Oxford University Press did not stop there. Note 3 on page 19 reads, "There is a promise of blessing upon the individuals and nations who bless Abram's descendants, and a curse lay upon those who persecute the Jew." The word Jew is used in the footnotes in describing an occurrence 2,000 to 3,000 years before the word Jew existed. In fact, Jew is taken from the name Judah, who was, it is told, one of the 12 grandsons of Abraham, Abram of Genesis 12. Neither Judah nor Jew existed, and this footnote is a false concoction. Note 3 continues, God's promised Abram and his seed certainly did not terminate at Sinai with the giving of the law. The New Testament and Old Testament are full of post-Sinai promises concerning Israel and the land which is to be Israel's everlasting possession. Listeners should be asking, why is Oxford University Press putting words in the mouths of the readers of this Bible to make them think their God promises blessings and curses on people today based on how they think about or act toward present-day Jews and present-day Israel? What about all the other people in the world? Let's read further in the footnotes to Genesis 12:3. Promise to the Gentiles, I will bless them that bless thee. Those who honor Abram will be blessed, and curse them that curse thee. This was a warning literally fulfilled in the history of Israel's persecution. It has invariably fared ill with the people who have persecuted the Jew, and well with those who have protected him. And here is the punchline. For a nation to commit the sin of anti-Semitism brings inevitable judgment. The future will still more remarkably prove this principle. Isn't that convenient?
So now you have anti-Semitism is created in Abraham's time. The footnote to Abraham's words create the word anti-Semitism. Christian Zionism believes that our nation will be judged if we are not sufficiently kind as a nation to the state of Israel. They have made sin a sort of a national corporate event rather than an individual thing. Of course, there is no such thing as national sin. Nations don't sin, we do. Individuals do, men do. But this has created a national sin so that Christian Zionists like John Hagee believe that God will rain fire down on our country, will somehow punish our entire nation for being insufficiently kind to the state of Israel.
Zionist-friendly Oxford University Press says in our Bible that the whole country will be considered in sin, and we will be in line for judgment from God if we are not properly friendly to the nation of Israel. And remember, there was no Jew in the time of Abram. There was no Israel at the time that Schofield penned the original notes, and it is doubtful that Cyrus Schofield would have even understood the enormity of the evil purpose for which his book was written. It was to have the most prominent Zionist publisher in the world, and it would deify a country that did not exist, and would be born of force 40 years after his death. Not all Orthodox Christians were asleep during that time. Philip Morrow was one who saw both the heretical and the war-making dangers of the new religion, and actually called it Zionism. Morrow was a well-known patent attorney, counsel for the Columbia Phonograph Company, and a Christian researcher who wrote legal briefs for William Jennings Bryan's famous court cases. In his 1927 book entitled Gospel of the Kingdom, with an examination of modern dispensationalism, Philip Morrow wrote, "Through an incident of recent occurrence, I was made aware of the extent, far greater than I imagined, to which the modern system of dispensationalism has found acceptance among Orthodox Christians, and also the extent correspondingly great to which the recently published Schofield Bible, which is the main vehicle of the new system of doctrine referred to, has usurped the place of authority that belonged to God's Bible alone." Philip Morrow tells us that he had been caught up himself in the evangelicalism or Christian Zionism of his day and learned about it from the inside. This has been the case with most of us who come to an understanding of Christian Zionism. The late Philip Morrow had been a source of encouragement to many critics of Judeo-Christianity who thought they were alone. Philip Morrow was a dedicated scholar with an engineer's logic and a lawyer's tenacity. That allowed him to foresee error in 1927 that Christian scholars are only beginning to acknowledge 80 years later. We, like Morrow, should also be profoundly sympathetic for those who are caught up in the error of Christian Zionism, dispensationalism, or Judeo-Christianity by any name, because they are among our families and best friends. Jesus' words require that we reclaim them back to traditional Christianity. Dr. F. Furman Curley is another unsung Christian scholar who saw the path to war and the error of dispensationalism. He was the head of graduate studies at Abilene Christian University. In 1983, he wrote a short book entitled The Middle East Crisis in Biblical Perspective, in which he takes sharp issue with those he calls Israel First Millennials and Christian Zionism's evil fruits of perpetual war in the Middle East. He names Hal Lindsey and the late Jerry Falwell as radical Zionist prophets who would help nudge the U.S. into endless war with Islamic states. Dr. Curley explained why. When the concept of Armageddon, as in Revelation 16:16, is raised, those who believe in a literal war at Armageddon often feel that Christians should work to start this war and should vigorously participate in it. Those in particular who view this present situation as Armageddon believe that Christians should support Israel with vigor, and they urge our government to take an active part in the conflict in the Middle East. Curley saw Christian Zionist support for Israel's brutal occupation of Palestine as a precursor to more wars in the Middle East and concluded, one needs to be absolutely certain that the doctrine he follows is God's and not of men before he advocates a doctrine that would put the blood of other men on our hands. He explains the neo-Christian love affair with war as a religious fixation, stating, whereas Christians must pray for peace in the Middle East, premillennialists must pray and work for World War III so Armageddon will come. They cannot pray for peace in the Middle East. If a follower of Christian Zionism will only examine the simple teachings of Jesus in the New Testament, he will find there is not a single passage or phrase that would give a follower of Christ the cause to take the life of another man or another man's wife or a child in a faraway country. 1908.
Oh, snap. So I just epically failed at finding that Chosen. It's an amazing documentary, goes into even more depth. The King James Bible, biblical doctrine. Once I do come across it, I'll be sure to add it to this episode. I just do not want the wool to be pulled over our eyes. We could look at Revelation chapter 2 verse 9 or Revelation chapter 3 verse 9, but there's just such a danger to this because anything that infringes upon our free speech, which is not of our loving creator, he's pro free agency. Look what he's allowing. So anything that would hinder our speech, even under the guise of good, that's of the synagogue of Satan. I know about your suffering and your poverty, but you are rich. I know the blasphemy of those opposing you. They say they are Jews, but they are not. So how is it anti-Semitic, right? Even by their definition, when someone's claiming something just as a shield, but they are not, like a Soros character, because their synagogue belongs to Satan. So we've been warned about this era, and it's just basing individuals on the fruits that they themselves bear. And I believe this has been a huge problem, the Scofield Bible, in misleading God's children in horrific ways. And you just look at the outcomes, and you look at like you don't have to take my word for it. You can just hear it from themselves and see how this aligns with this whole New World Order.
When the Mashiach will come, there'll be a new world order.
In order for Mashiach to come, we cannot have any other governments. It's going to be one kingdom, one malchut, one government. So you can look at it in the negative aspect of saying a new world order, a one government. Yeah, you're right. It is going to be a new world order. The new world of Mashiach with one order, the Torah, one government. Yeah, it's going to be a Sanhedrin. We're not going to have all the rest of the stuff. The time of the entire planet.
Mind you, these individuals do not believe in Jesus Christ. Some don't even believe he was a prophet. Some believe he, in fact, was the evil one. So for a second to believe and connect like, oh, they're speaking of my God coming to this world. No. Unless in fact, you know what, we have a clip after this which clearly indicates who they're speaking of, who their God actually is. And it's not connected to Jesus. So who else is there? Think on it.
It is done.
For Mashiach to take over the world, don't forget, at a certain point, King Mashiach should be ruling the whole world. They themselves, the nations of the whole world, will ask him and beg him to take over their, at least the government, their government, to teach them the right way, to teach them how to live. The whole world will take him upon themselves as the leader. And then actually going to be a new world order, but not like those radical ones think. There's going to be a new world order, but the new world of God order.
Before Mashiach comes and a new world order is instituted, we need to destroy what existed previously, and we need a destruction of society and the world as we know it.
Every new reality means a total loss of the reality that came before it, referring to the coming of Mashiach and the new world order that comes with it. Okay? In other words, for what is coming, what is has to be unrecognizable. Nothing can remain. None of the world systems can remain. Nothing will remain because it's rotten to the core.
The spiritual heirs of the Roman Empire is the Western world, United States of America, so the USA will last until Mashiach comes.
Someone has to completely destroy this world and its system before the new one comes in. You want your one world government? So does God, no problem.
God will abolish every government on earth and hand over control of the whole world to Mashiach.
Mashiach will be the king of the entire world. There will be a monarchy restored to the world. Mashiach will be king, and he will be accepted by both the nation of Israel and all the nations of the world alike.
You may be wondering why Hashem wants to destroy his world, why so much destruction, so much nuclear bombs and so forth. Before a new world is built, the old has to be destroyed.
It's no secret you connect AIPAC. You connect so many individuals to our current Senate, Congress. They're all supporting blind allegiance. And as far as I can see in the connections, there's a lot of crafty words and it looks good. Even that, it's like, oh yeah, let God come in and destroy. But what God? And what are they actually behind? So this one says it out loud, this rabbi. The source of evil is God, not Satan.
Это Бог. Не сатана. В иудаизме сатана – это и
In Judaism, Satan is God. I mean, you can hear it for yourself, but a disclaimer. As far as the destruction, is this God? Is this a loving creator? The destruction that's been taking place over in Gaza and now furthering, it's insane what we are supporting. It's insane. Now, I know it's not all of us, but disclaimer, this is graphic and it's horrific. These aren't terrorists. These are families. These are women and children. All right, that's enough. That's enough. So that's the destruction they're speaking of, and it's not stopping there. And with another stolen election, could you only imagine? That's why I find it crucial. And you want to look at the manipulation tactics and actually what's behind, like what's going on there. There's great videos. There's great information. In fact, we could go through this one. It is eye-opening. Should we do it? But that's where the root of the battles we're faced with truly is spiritual warfare. There's so much just muddying everything. That's where we're to seek relation. We're to seek the truths directly from our God, our loving creator himself. He'll pave the way. He will instill truth upon your heart. We're so easily malleable. What other scenarios do we need to pull up other than how people were duped over the vax? There's endless analogies we could use to prove how manipulatable we all are. I mean, with the information and the research I've done, just even this representation, all these flags, it turns my stomach at this point to see that flag hung here in the States. I feel it's more than treasonous that it's in fact, like, that isn't the Star of David. More accurately, based on the biblical research I've done, it's the Star of Ramfran. It's the Star of Satan. So you could look into the Bible itself. We've gone into it. We went into the untouchable topic. Are there good Jews? Are there bad Jews? And we dove into it. View that episode. We really went through it. And then look at the episode about Netanyahu and the lies, lying to all of us. So let's go ahead and play it. Why not? Just compile more information. This can help us grasp the manipulation tactics as to how they prey on good people's hearts to get behind really evil things. And I believe there's some graphic images even to this episode. So just disclaimer, or video clip. But why not? Now, why dive into all this too? Because it's hard for me to really engage in all those things when we see the corruption here, but this is tied into the corruption here. This is tied into the spiritual warfare that's playing out right here. So if anything, the biggest sense of urgency as of right now, with really unknown, kind of shaky future at stake, is getting right with God. Seeking, because we're all visiting here. Why get wrapped up into the illusion of this existence? Because it's more so the illusion when, I mean, especially when someone comes to terms and feels convicted, like, wow, there is more to this life. And Jesus proved that to us by conquering death. So there legitimately is more to this existence than this mortal existence. This is just a moment in time, right? And as simple as I could put it, we're put here to choose our Father. And we could choose the evil one and get wrapped up in this existence, or we can kind of step out of the norm of this existence and actually gain relationship with the creator of it all. And in our current society, I mean, it's no secret, like they've pulled God out of everything. So that's now more on the fringe to really acknowledge and accept, but it's your soul. It's eternity. It's eternal. Conquering death. Let's not be deceived. It's pretty simple. And this is all noise. So I hope, like, all these roads simply lead to that, above all. But I know as more people become convicted in our loving Creator, they will fall into their roles here more so in a bigger picture sense than an individual more so self-serving, just being wrapped up in this world.
An entire nation out there that is responsible.
But, as with any genocide, the first step was to dehumanize the enemy.
Bloodthirsty terrorists who rape and burn people alive, and it's been reported on the beach.
What happened to the terrorists that didn't ever get reported and it swept under the rug that attacked Liberty, the ship? There's so many old timers that have come out and actually told that story. Like, genuinely, what has this state of Israel done good for anyone, not just America? It's crazy. What a wild existence and time we live in.
BBC.
What happened on October 7th included acts that were bad enough in and of themselves. But if you want to create a context for dehumanization and genocide, you need to go further.
The Israeli Prime Minister's spokesman just confirmed babies and toddlers were found with their heads decapitated.
We saw false reports about beheaded babies, which never happened, about a systematic campaign of mass rape, which never happened, about babies being cut from the abdomen of their mothers, which never.
I've had loved ones, even to this point, talk about the atrocities that Gazians have committed against the Israelites. And it's just like, when you actually look into it, once again, like, all of a sudden, just due to this narrative, you believe the talking heads when you don't believe the talking heads due to the whole pandemic. What? That doesn't compute. And that's why I really wanted to stay away from this, because it's tough. How do we really gain the truth to these situations when we know the levels of corruption right here at home? So we're to turn our energy and our time inwardly. But there's an importance to this with the spiritual warfare sense and the infiltration. And I believe it's leading. It's the synagogue of Satan essentially is leading all the tentacles from the attacks on our health, on our freedoms, on our elections. It's all intertwined to this spiritual warfare. And I do personally believe we have a chance as mortals in this time right here and right now, not just to minimize suffering for God's children and so many of our loved ones, but we could actually save some mortal lives, which is more so just extending the life to gain more of an opportunity to fulfill God's will with our time here, but most importantly, lead to saving souls. And I believe that's why the God of this world, the evil one sitting on his throne, wants to abrupt. That's why he has such a bloodlust for children. He has such a bloodlust for innocent life, trying to disrupt the opportunity, in a sense, to get to know God and wound God, have him hurt over his plan for us all here. And we're not to fall prey to those tactics. We're just not. This is not good. And we've been sold a bill of goods. Let's just continue, because this does really help open the eyes. And there's much more information on these topics that you could dive into that I'm only going to go there when I feel relevant to help kind of paint that bigger picture, if you will.
Never happened. And a whole series of other horrific atrocities. These were deliberately concocted official stories that were being provided in particular to a Western audience,
right,
in order to create an atmosphere in which the crimes that were to follow would go on unchecked.
Shortly after October 7th, Israel sealed off Gaza's borders, including to foreign reporters.
Wow, look at that.
The Palestinian journalists left to tell the story would soon be killed at an unprecedented rate.
Right.
Israeli forces quickly set their sights on Gaza's healthcare system. One by one, hospitals, swelling with patients and refugees, came under attack.
It's war crimes.
The difference between this genocide and the other wars that I had been in, the wars in Gaza, the 2021 war, the 2014 war, the 2012, 2009, and even the war in Yemen, the war in Syria, the comparison between them and a genocide is the comparison between a flood and a tsunami.
Wow.
In Gaza, 50% of the wounded were children, and they remain so. The massacres never stop, the operating rooms never stop, and even when you're doing that, you then discover that you've only treated a small percentage of the wounded.
Israel wanted to begin a campaign to start taking out all of these medical facilities. In part, they were concerned that Hamas combatants were going to be treated in them, but also this was part of a war of annihilation to try to force the Palestinians in Gaza into a constant state of motion, moving from one place to another. Nowhere is safe for you, not even a hospital.
A home, a school, a hospital that hosts terrorists is not a home, is not a school, and is not a hospital.
You're ramping up propaganda to project so you can get people behind your mass genocide. Who are the real terrorists at this point? What sit-downs, what conversations were even attempted to have? This is beyond a genocide. It's a land grab, and it's the furthering of the synagogue of Satan. I'm convicted. If anyone has evidence, and I get there's a lot, there's so much money and everything, but behind this other side, but you compare it to what's actually taking place, it can't trump truth. I don't care how colorful it is, how well crafted it is, how well spoken. There's an unfathomable amount of innocent loss of life in war crimes.
It's a terror base.
The Israelis were pumping the public with information that was meant to convince people that hospitals are not really hospitals.
Hamas was using the patients in that hospital as a human shield.
And this was a narrative that we saw unfolding almost from the beginning.
Yeah. Wow.
By November 10th, just over 1 month into Israel's assault, half of all hospitals in Gaza were out of service. One of them was the Rantisi Children's Hospital, which Israel bombed and then raided. after it claimed Hamas was using it to hide Israeli captives. Once inside, military spokesperson Daniel Hagari said Israeli forces had found proof and gave CNN special access.
Evidence, Hagari says, points towards Hamas and possible hostage presence below the hospital.
Hagari showed CNN's reporter, Nick Robertson, a document on the wall, which he claimed was a roster of Hamas members keeping guard over Israeli captives.
This is a guarding list. Every terrorist has his own shift.
This became quite an embarrassing moment for CNN because it wasn't a Hamas roster at all. It was a calendar, and written in Arabic was the days of the week.
How is it embarrassing? CNN, they don't apologize when they get things wrong. They don't properly re-educate. They run on the propaganda, magnify that, and then there might be a slight little disclaimer to something inserted somewhere or another that doesn't reach anybody, really, yet the masses they just manipulated. It's the warfare on information is so real. We can't grasp that, like the magnitude of it, really effectively enough. It's why we just all got to get everyone on free speech platforms. Otherwise, you will be manipulated.
But the report that came out from Nick Robertson just swallowed up Israel's claim.
To make matters worse, the allegation that the calendar was a Hamas roster had already been debunked on social media the day before the CNN broadcast. Wow. According to multiple CNN journalists and an internal WhatsApp log that we obtained, a Palestinian producer alerted her colleagues, including Robertson, but was ignored. The report went out.
Do you grasp that? So they didn't care. It was debunked before it really went out. But there's proper communications with these outlets, and they still didn't care. So who is the true propagandists? And why would they be pushing these narratives? It's not good. It's under deceit. And it's gained a lot of momentum from good-hearted Christians and so many other individuals that have been manipulated too, from the Scofield Bible, or from, let's just say, if there's been that much energy that's gone into manipulating God's word, imagine how much energy has gone into, let's say, the universities and the education systems where a pastor would even gain his knowledge, right? So kind of similar to the doctors. And then you get put in kind of a box even in your position within this church. So, it truly is spiritual warfare on the deepest of levels we haven't even really considered much before. But it's important that we gain the proper discernment, and we're all going to mess up, right? And we can do things and confront individuals, whether it's in our personal lives or a church or a pastor, in very healthy ways. And at the end of the day, it's up to them as to whether or not they're going to hear you, if they're going to shift their direction. And if they're not going to hear you and they're not going to shift their direction, well, then you're now left obviously with the choice to continue to participate or donate to that individual or that church, or start sounding the alarm to others you care about there and, seek a more truth-telling pastors elsewhere. It's a constant pursuit for truth, and it's being spat upon so effectively in this era with the megaphone and all these things evil has bought up.
First on television, but there was still time to correct it before it went up online. Another producer tried to make that case.
Another one even.
One colleague saw the report and flagged to Nick, hold on, people are saying that this is not accurate. And apparently Nick said, are you meaning to say that Hagari is lying to us? So there was a chance for this to get stopped, but Nick was adamant and it went out. He's a very experienced correspondent. If you are trusting the Israeli government over your own colleagues, then you need to have your wrist slapped at the very least, because your reporting has given cover to the Israeli operation.
No proof would ever emerge of captives held at the Rantisi hospital. Meanwhile, Israeli forces had turned their attention to the Shifa hospital, the largest in the Gaza Strip, responsible for 40% of its healthcare capacity. They began by releasing an animated video of a tunnel network beneath the hospital, which they described as Hamas's command and control center.
Great
The White House and Pentagon
Look at the
today
Great
confirmed
Lakes.
my reporting yesterday that the U.S. has intelligence suggesting Hamas is operating a command center under the Al-Shifa hospital.
As Israeli forces closed in on the hospital, those claims were repeated, often with little to no pushback on Western news outlets.
And did the IDF show you anything that resembled an actual command and control center?
When you can see the truth. I mean, think about their narrative. We're going after those terrorists. On falsified, deceitful information. And what's the outcome of these situations? Targeting and bombing hospitals. Who's in those hospitals? When the terrorists aren't there. Hospital after hospital. No evidence, no proof. So the question becomes kind of clear. Or the actual terrorists here become clear. And it's the ones projecting. Unbelievable.
What we saw, Kana, was a pretty sophisticated looking tunnel.
The New York Times and other news organizations began to then create their own renditions of what they, I guess, imagined Hamas had underneath Al-Shifa hospital, promoting the narrative that something very nefarious is taking place. That was the moment, and you can trace it, that the floodgates were opened for the Israelis, that they perceived that they now had a green light to wage war against Palestinian hospitals and medical facilities in Gaza.
Do you have what you need to treat people?
So we've run out of burns dressings, and there are over 100 patients with burns covering over 40% of their bodies.
One of probably the most distressing aspects about that period when I was working at Shifa Hospital is that we were getting hundreds and hundreds of wounded. The bombing around Shifa was continuous. And so you'd get phone calls, and the Western journalists wanted to ask about was, when you walk around, do you see any tunnels?
Israel continues to maintain that beneath it, in underground tunnels, Hamas has a command center. Is this something that you're aware of?
So, I mean, first of all...
And if you say that I've never seen any of the tunnels, then you are dismissed immediately.
After 2 weeks of bombing the Shifa compound, Israeli forces stormed the hospital on November 15th.
The target of the war is to defeat Hamas.
Once again, Daniel Hagari was there to show the world some weapons he claimed belonged to Hamas, alongside some tunnels, many of which were built by Israel in the 1980s.
Wow.
Nothing that remotely resembled a command center. Since the raids on Shifa and Rantisi, every hospital in Gaza has been attacked, put out of service, or demolished. Witnesses have described mass executions, including of patients and medical staff, testimonies that barely registered in the Western news cycle.
أصعب شيء والخوف اللي شفته لما كانوا يطخوا النزلان قدام عينينا.
Executing people right in front. Oh my gosh. This is so horrific.
وكانوا يفحروا الجوار ويحطوا 5-6 بقلب جورة ويدفنوهم.
Mass graves were found, with hundreds of bodies.
So evil.
Over 800 health workers, doctors, nurses, paramedics who've been killed. That kind of dismantlement of health was a critical component of the genocidal machine. Because what that did is it ensured that anybody who's wounded die of their wounds and that anyone with a chronic disease would eventually die of that disease. You add to the mix the famine, and so the wounded are now dying because they are malnourished.
This, they say, is a Hamas tunnel that connects to a tunnel network underneath the Al-Shifa hospital.
The Western media was critical to the process of demonization of the Palestinian health system. And what is shocking is that when the Israelis went into Shifa and there were no real evidence of these bunkers, these media outlets did not recant their original stories.
Wow. Holy smokes. The war tactics continue. Now, I just kind of wanted to dive into some of that to really just prove that as important as this election is, we know what's happened. It's been a selection. It's been a selection. How are we to, with the evidence we brought in the beginning of this episode, right here in Arizona, as to how Katie Hobbs has allowed for illegals to obtain the ability to vote federal, and it seems also in local. It's unbelievable. So I want us to think bigger than even the election. I mean, it's important we show up and give the evidence we need to really dive through everything, get to the bottom of it all. But we really do need to unite as God's children, as the people of this nation, because no matter what the outcome is, I even believe if we get a reprieve through Trump, that we're to maximize that reprieve, that we'll maximize that breathing room we have to ensure. I mean, he said a lot of pro-Israel things, and it's just like, no, we have the corruption here. We're to turn that energy, those funds, everything here. We're not going to further the genocide of people. I mean, I guess I stopped the screen share, but just what was gone over in the Scofield Bible, what has been uncovered, until we actually are able to get to the bottom of the truth with all these situations, not a penny goes to foreign aid. We have so many institutions going against we the people here. We must eradicate that. We must, clean up Western medicine. We need a medical system that is about health and wellness over financial benefit. Now, we'll keep it a business. We'll ensure doctors get paid and nurses and all that get paid, right? But if we got to privatize everything, great, because it's clearly anything financial the government has got its hooks in. It's more so become a money laundering system, and they've been so ineffective. There's contractors that report that get government jobs that they end up billing. They'll go to the depot and buy a $20 hammer, and they'll bill the government $300 for it. It gets misused and abused on every single level there is. So bring it all over to the private sector. Minimize the government. The only way we can ensure that we stop the poisoning of the sky and the poisoning in our water and the centralization and the poisoning of our food is through uniting as God's children, as one people. We could set aside our differences. In fact, the majority of us align on, I'd venture to say, 80% or more of things. Let that fuel the unification to rule out the corruption, so we collectively can ensure the direction of this country. I mean, if we don't, it's your choice, but if we don't, we get what we get. And it would just be lovely to see people maximize the opportunities we got, minimize some suffering, bring more people to God, fulfill the purposes to why we're here. That's absolutely crucial. So Jesus is calling. Let's go ahead and dive into today's read. October 19th. It reads, "Come to me with your defenses down, ready to be blessed and filled with my presence." It's such a gift. There's so much healing, peace, gifts I can't even put into words. Relax and feel the relief of being totally open and authentic with me. You have nothing to hide and nothing to disclose because I know everything about you already. You can have no other relationship like this one. Let's just interject that the evil one will lie and deceive as though he's giving these same promises, but he cannot fulfill them. There is no other relationship like the one we could have with our loving Creator. Take the time to savor its riches, basking in my golden light. One of the worst consequences of the fall is the elaborate barriers people erect between themselves and others. Facades abound in the world, even in my body, the church. Sometimes church is the last place where people feel free to be themselves. I've experienced that. I know a lot of individuals that experience that. And it's unfortunate. But we shouldn't allow those hardships or scars or traumas to shut the door in the relationship we could have with our loving Creator. I've been guilty of that, and it was to my detriment. I'm so grateful to have been humbled and gained that connection. It's the only thing that truly matters in this existence. The only thing that truly you can entrust in fully. Anyone else here will let you down in ways. 100%. It's God above everything. They cover up with Sunday clothes and Sunday smiles. They feel relief when they leave because of the strain of false fellowship. They best... What is that? Excuse me, I just really tripped over this word, and it's a silly one. I apologize for interrupting. Human moment. Once again, I'm relearning to read. Lyme disease and the neurological dysfunction it has caused is no joke. And that's what's amped me and been a big fuel to show up and help others to whatever ability, no matter how much I even fall on my face. We should all kick pride and ego in the face and more so obtain that attitude. There's great blessing. So, yes, the best antidote to this artificial atmosphere is practicing my presence at church. Let your primary focus be communing with me, worshiping me, glorifying me. Then you will be able to smile at others with joy and love them with my love. Wow. I could do better on all of that, I'll admit. There's 3 biblical references here. I challenge you to check them out. We got 1 John 1:5-7, Exodus 33:14, Philippians 4:8-9. Now, there's been a couple scripture references I've been meaning to get through a while now. Let's see if I could. Okay, here we go. Help us discern evil. So I challenge you to look these up. It will be beneficial. It will give us the discernment and the distinctions between the evil one and God. So it states, God will destroy evil people. Job 4:8. That should give us some reprieve that we, more than seeking justice in this life, to minimize the impacts of evildoers in this existence. That's what's crucial. God helps keep his people from sin. Psalm 19:13. God hates people who do evil. He already hates the evildoers, folks. There will be a wrath. Psalm 26:5. God permits evil. Romans 1:24-28. Why would he do that? Well, he loves us so much. He's giving us. That's why everything of this existence, like, it's free agency from God. So anyone trying to censor us, trying to muzzle us, are you freaking kidding me? That is not of God. God cannot coexist with evil. Galatians 5:16-17. Well, God is light. The devil's darkness. Darkness can't exist with light. Not God's light. Christians should put away evil from their lives. Ephesians 4:22. There are spiritual forces behind evil. Ephesians 6:12. There 100% is. Just like you can open that door to God and feel his love, you 100% could open doors, not just to the devil himself, but all his minions. That's why I love praying in Jesus' name to cast out saboteurs, demons, spirits, the devil himself, not today Satan, and bring in God's light. And there's just an unexplainable feeling that comes with that. Now, I don't know why, but I wanted to couple this group of verses with evil. Dishonesty. And we're seeing so much of that right there, uncovered from the synagogue of Satan itself. There's mass deception, mass dishonesty. Let's help gain the discernment. Dishonesty is listed in the 10 Commandments, Exodus 20:16. Be honest in your business dealings, Leviticus 19:35-36. That's actually important, because if we're not honest in our lives and in our business dealings, how are we going to continue to have the discernment we need to even protect ourselves against dishonesty? It's pretty powerful. Do not lie for your own gain. Deuteronomy 19:14. Nothing. Like, why would we do that? I get we embellish on truth, and we shouldn't. We all do it to an extent. But whole truth. Oh, what's the other word I was looking for? Oh, there's a phrase I really like, and I wish it would come to me right now. Just being impeccably honest. Was that it? I don't know. Let's continue. Dishonest people cannot know God. Wow. Psalm 101:7. So not only would it mess with your discernment, it would mess with your connection with God. Throw you out of his will, the fruit of his love, his light even. Then what are we? We're susceptible to the one masquerading as God. Ooh, that's scary. God hates deception. Like, I want that to be like the ending note. There's one more, but God hates deception, folks. It's running rampant. I don't understand how we haven't gone after these traditional, God, you can't even call them news. These propagandists, these liars. We should be shutting these places down, not allowing them to manipulate the masses through their deception at all. God hates them. God will punish those who take advantage of others. 1 Thessalonians 4:6. Man, I gotta work on. Lots of work to do over here. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Oh my gosh, it's dark outside. it was quite the struggle. I could hear that little Jenny in the background. It's sure working hard, it did all right. Kept the lights on for an episode. We'll see if it will continue for the upload. But it's a crazy time. Yes, who knows? There's obviously, we haven't woken up fast enough. There's clearly worse things coming down the pipe, but are we to walk in fear? No. We could literally obtain a peace and walk in victory no matter what comes. We gain that kind of faith, then there's no fear in uniting and actually addressing the real war, the real threats, even in this existence. Pushing back Satan. Getting him to a point he fears every time our feet touch the ground and we get out of bed each morning. That, my friends, is glory. That's victory. I don't know. I'm short on words right now. Folks, if you didn't feel impressed to help us magnify our voice by making direct donations to the Venmo, Cash App, the GoFundMe, and even the Buy Me a Coffee link directly, because we can magnify, we could bring in tech gurus to advertise more. I want to go bigger than that. I want to obtain funds from individuals earn your trust in a way to where we could spin off other groups to create more impactful documentaries, groups to unify, create a one-stop shop where we could all go to send out our grievances to all the officials. And we must gain this level of organization, more organization to kind of fend off evil in this life. There's a small window, but if tyranny gets too bad, then it might go to more extreme means. I kind of want to avoid that at all costs. But I guess it's up to the people as to how well I'm doing creating information, putting words together as to whether I gain that type of favor or not. So if it's not that, check out our affiliations, because our affiliations is a triple win. Those are companies already doing things on behalf of us and our freedoms and so many amazing things. But it's also coming to you at a discounted price. And we'll get a sliver. So it's just a win-win all around. We got Patriot Mobile, EMP Shield. Get one of those on your vehicle today. I can't emphasize how crucial that is. And you're getting $50 off every single product. So for a few $100 to ensure your vehicle is going to work during a blackout or an EMP, no brainer. Get it today. Start buying them for your family members. The more that have them, the less threat you're actually going to become when the lights go out. And I don't believe it's an if. I believe that's a when. Let's prepare with American Reserves. Just mention UNMUZZLED. You'll get 10% off. They have food preparation, survival food, water filtration, generators, things of that nature. Man, I should have looked into it, but I needed one now, today. Oh, boy. Let's take care of your health. Check out Bond Charge. Get an infrared sauna blanket. Look at the red light therapies. All, like the Blue Blocks glasses, things they're offering there. You're getting, what is it? 10% off through, is it 10 or 15? It's 15% off through Bond Charge. Fancy that. Just click the link below. Eradicate the heavy metals and forever chemicals through ordering MasterPeace. It's just a tincture. I can't wait to get my hands on the refill. I know my body's become overloaded. And as amazing as the infrared sauna is, getting out a lot of toxins, these metals are stubborn to get out. So it's great to have a tincture that could help. And I genuinely feel as they ramp up frequency warfare, the more toxic load we have of metals, the more reactive, the more impacting the frequencies are going to be on your body, potentially even your brain function. That's not good. That's kind of freaky stuff. Check out Black Eagle Apparel and get an Unmuzzled Chat t-shirt or other freedom merch or a God merch shirt. I'm tired. I hope you all have a great evening. I look forward to showing up even better. Let's see. Tomorrow's Sunday. I plan on doing church in the morning. I may even be relocating tomorrow. And if that's the case, I'm not sure if I'll get an episode out. So to be determined. But I look forward to getting one out as soon as I get set up. Till then, may our loving Creator bless you. May God bless this country. And until next time, take care.